Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. Does the social model of disability work for people with profound autism? Stay with us if you'd like to hear Eileen Lamb, an autistic self-advocate and the mother of a boy with profound autism, share her ideas on this topic. This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Eileen, and we also discuss her role as the Senior Director of Social Media at Autism Speaks, the controversy around Autism Speaks and how this organization has evolved in the last decade, why Eileen thinks it's important to make a distinction between different degrees of autism, black and white thinking, and Eileen's tips for other autistic self-advocates. In this episode, discover what's possible when you acknowledge those who can't speak for themselves. And now, I bring you Eileen Lamb. So let's switch gears now and talk a little bit about your role. So you're the Senior Director of Social Media at Autism Speaks. Oh, for just some context, Autism Speaks has gotten a lot of criticism from the autistic community, in part because they used to have a message around curing autism, and a lot of people didn't like that. Now, did you get any backlash from the autistic community for working there?
Oh, of course. I still do to this day. I mean, every time I mention Autism Speaks, and I don't think it's fair because, first of all, like so much of the criticism is either completely false or outdated by over a decade. And it's difficult and just not about Autism Speaks, but everything that's controversial in the autism world is that there is a lack of appreciation for nuance. You know, it's very black and white, and people don't understand that things evolve, right? And I feel like if at one point in time something was wrong, in the mind of a lot of people, it's always going to be wrong. There is no redeeming yourself. There is no learning and evolving, and it makes it really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so could you talk a little bit about how they've steered away from that kind of messaging and what they stand for now?
Well, Autism Speaks is not looking for a cure. I mean, it was removed from the mission statement like a decade ago. But, you know, another criticism that you hear a lot is that Autism Speaks doesn't hire autistic people. And to me, it's funny. Well, first of all, the social media team is fully autistic at Autism Speaks. I'm autistic. The person on my team is autistic. There are autistic board members. We have full groups of autistic people that we consult on pretty much everything we're doing. Like we have our champions of change and other groups like emerging leaders. So we are always working with autistic people, you know, whether it's employees, board member groups outside of, like who don't work for Autism Speaks, but who do work with us. So that's, again, another one of the criticism that just makes me smile when I see that on social media, especially being autistic myself. I think people need to realize that, you know, I'm not just saying that, you know, Autism Speaks listens to autistic people and works with autistic people. The funding criticism also is something you hear a lot, when in reality, 89 cents of every dollar goes back to the community. And you hear some really absurd numbers on social media. Also, Autism Speaks has the highest rating as far as a charity goes on Charity Navigator. We have the highest rating possible, and you can check other autism organizations there too. You know, we're just very transparent about everything. And then, you know, there are the things like the puzzle piece and the color blue. I mean, to me, it's just silly to fight about terminology and symbols. The puzzle piece means different things to different people, but it was never meant to symbolize that autistic people are missing a piece, yet you'll still hear that on social media. So,
yeah. Well, speaking of terminology, I wanted to talk about the controversy around saying profound autism. Could you explain how this term came about? Maybe even like a little bit of context of the DSM-5's severity scale?
Yeah. Yeah. So first of all, like profound autism is not in the DSM-5, but it is recognized by the Lancet Commission and the CDC reports on profound autism prevalence. So even though it's not a diagnosis quite yet, it's still like very legit and recognized as a term to describe autistic people who are above 8 and who have an intellectual disability as well as level 3 autism, to make it simple, and challenging behavior. So it's really to categorize autistic people with the most severe needs, like my son, Charlie, who requires 24/7 support to just stay alive and safe.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you say to people who argue that saying profound autism can maybe diminish some strengths? It's kind of like reminds me of high functioning and low functioning in those terms.
I mean, I say come spend 1 hour with Charlie and you'll change your mind really quickly. I mean, obviously I love Charlie with all my heart. There are, however, so many more struggles than strengths. Charlie is very sweet, but my life when I'm with Charlie is 24/7 attention, care, just to keep him safe. Like I said, it's cleaning poop off the walls. It's hiding any little item so he doesn't swallow them. It's making sure he doesn't run away in front of cars, and his self-harming behaviors and aggression and intellectual disability. So you can't teach a child with an intellectual disability, as it's a lot harder than teaching a child with an intellectual disability. And I think it's really important that we use the right terms to get the right services, but also because it's so difficult when you hear about autism in the media and you have autism like me speaking to you, able to be on a podcast, and then you have Charlie, which I just described. It's one term to describe things that are honestly completely different on a lot of aspects. It's very important so we get the right services. And also, to me, like the more we talk about the strengths of autism, it's great. We need to do both, don't get me wrong, but it makes it harder to get the services, because why would we need services and support if autism is such a superpower and strength, right? So we need to be sharing the hard parts too. If I say Charlie has autism, it doesn't tell you much, right?
Yeah.
If I say Charlie has profound autism, now you can kind of picture what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Right. And even within the autism that's not profound, there's so much variability in needs. What do you think about when the DSM kind of grouped everything under the same umbrella? Do you agree with that?
No, I think that was a big mistake personally. And I wish that it was not done. I think it would fix so many of the controversies in the autism community and all of the problems when it comes to funding and representing autism if we still had two separate diagnoses, whether it's having a label, not saying Asperger's necessarily, but something within that category, or a profound autism diagnosis. I don't know how we separate it, but I think having that distinction would be very, very important again, because autism describes so many things these days, from people who are like geniuses able to graduate from Harvard, and to people like Charlie who will never live independently and require 24/7 support. I think the spectrum has become too broad.
Mm-hmm. Do you know of any talks of making another modification to the DSM-5 or the DSM? Have you heard of anything?
I know that many who are involved want to make it happen, but that it's apparently a lot harder than it sounds to make changes to the DSM. But the new version should be coming out fairly soon, right? I believe it's every 12 years or something. So we shall see.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're thinking about profound autism and what it means, is there any kind of downfall or, could it backfire if using that term?
No, I don't think so. I really don't see any way where it could backfire, because if someone has profound autism, I mean, they need that 24/7 support. And the thing is, I don't understand why people think that pointing out someone's struggles take away from their strengths. We're not saying that because they struggle, they're less than. We're just saying this is the reality. These people need more support. We're not saying these people are worthless because they have struggles. Just saying these people with profound autism need more support. And the type of support they need is going to be different from someone who has level 1 autism like me.
Yeah.
I don't 24/7 support. You don't need to hide screws and Play-Doh and things from me. I'm not going to eat it. I don't using the bathroom. It's different. So I think it's important to get the appropriate support.
Hey, Rachel here. I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Izzy0826, for reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. They said, "Thank you for having conversations that will help people grow and think beyond stigmas and misinformation. Thank you for the kind words. 5-star reviews like yours help us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. If, like Izzy, you're finding value in Autism Knows No Borders, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the conversation." You're familiar with the medical model of disability and the social model of disability. Just for context, could you define the difference? So like what the medical model looks at and what the social model looks at.
Yes, the social model of disability, I guess people believe that autistic people are disabled because of society, because society is not meant for autistic people. So that if you fix the way autistic people are seen and the way society accept them and, accommodation around autistic people, then autistic people would function a lot better. And then the medical model is what I go by and what the DSM, like medical professionals, go by, is that autism is a disability. And no matter how accepting society is and how the accommodations around, you're still going to be disabled by your own autism and not by society. So it's a difference between being disabled by society and by the actual autism.
What do you think about some advocates who are trying to steer away from the medical model and look at autism strictly from a social model of disability?
I think that's a very privileged take, personally, because even in the most accepting society, Charlie would never be able to function. Like, let's say everyone around him is accepting of his disability. Let's say everything is sensory friendly around him. He still wouldn't be able to communicate. He still will be eating non-edible items. He still will be aggressive. He still will run in front of cars. So the social model of disability only works when it comes to autistic people like myself who have, fewer challenges and less dangerous challenges. When it comes to someone with profound autism, it doesn't matter if society is accepting. It's great, but it's not gonna take the behaviors away. He's still gonna wander away. And if there is a pound, you see those stories every summer, right, of autistic children who run away and then sadly often end up drowning in a body of water nearby. Like, wow. That still would happen. These are like real things that are more common with autism. Like drowning is the number one cause of death in autistic children.
Oh, wow.
And society being accepting of that, it's not going to make it easier. So it's great in theory and on paper, but it's not realistic. Again, I believe the social model of disability only applies to the higher functioning individuals. Yes, I use that.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to, it's like a game of just tiptoeing around words sometimes that if there's not something else better to describe it, then what are you left with, right?
Exactly.
So what does your future look like? What are some future goals that you have or things that you're working on?
I will keep going with my profound autism advocacy. I really want, that's something that's so close to my heart, especially having it been dismissed so much on social media and not talked a lot in the media, profound autism. And as Charlie grows up, it's becoming more and more pressing. I feel like that we acknowledge profound autism and that we find more ways to support those people. And that's my future, really more advocacy for those with profound autism. I don't know what it's going to look like, what form it's going to take. Maybe another book, documentaries. There's actually a documentary about Charlie and our family called Who Speaks for Charlie. You can find it on YouTube. It's earned a few awards, actually. So I recommend checking it out. But yes, that's what's in store for me. I will keep talking about profound autism and I don't know in what, but it's needed.
Yeah. Do you ever get criticism? Well, I know that you get a lot of criticism online because you're so open, but how do you feel when people judge you about sharing so much about your family?
I honestly don't care anymore. It's like been there, done that. I have developed thick skin, but I know that my words are helping so many people. I read the comments on my post, see how many people it's helping. And, if I help even one person by sharing, I mean, I think it's more than worth it. I'm raising awareness and hopefully also acceptance. I'm hoping people, accept profound autism as much as they accept the quirky type of autism. And I will keep doing it. And I don't really care what people think.
This is so different from 5 years ago because I think, well, you were already growing a thick skin back then, but even in just how you're responding right now, I see a difference.
Yeah, I think I've really grown and I'm more of a whatever. I'll be doing it. I don't give a
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I always like to remind people that, autism is a broad spectrum and just remember that just because one person with autism doesn't mean everyone with autism. You just heard my story. And also, I think something that's important to mention is that I'm only speaking from my perspective for myself. I could never pretend to be speaking on behalf of all autistic people or all parents. We all have different perspectives, different stories, different viewpoints, and that's okay. And I think it's always going to be important to be in the nuance because it's never black and white. And that's something that bothers me on social media is when people say we autistic people don't like the puzzle piece, like, well, I'm autistic and I like it, so you can't speak in like generalization. I'm only speaking for myself. I'm not saying that just about these people, but I think it's something important and that it would create more unity if people were more nuanced in the way they speak about these things.
Mm-hmm. So, just to follow up on that, it's interesting because I've met a lot of and had conversations with some autistic people who do like to speak on behalf of the community. And is it a characteristic of autism in a way to be kind of, it's difficult to find the nuance. It's difficult to find that gray area because things are seen in black and white. And so it's a bit easier to just kind of stay in this box. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think black and white thinking is very common for autistic people, and that's something that I'm still working on. And that's something that I've become very aware of in my talk with my therapist. And so that's something I've worked on a lot. And now that I see it so clearly and how that's affecting, I mean, not just my relationship, but my advocacy, the black and white thinking, I really like to remind people of that, to keep that in mind. I mean, and I think, it's easy to say it's an autistic trait, but once you're aware of it, you can work on it, which I've done it. I'm still doing it. And again, autistic people are not a monolith. right? Just because someone thinks that way doesn't mean all autistic people do. And many of those people who dare speak on behalf of the entire autistic community are in echo chambers. They don't expand their viewpoints. They don't listen to other perspectives, And I think that's harmful to autistic people. Like if I stayed in my own circle, I've never met someone who did not like the puzzle piece or the color blue or Autism Speaks, right?
Yeah.
And to keep that in mind, like we gotta blend with each other, listen to each other's perspectives, and we have to stop making those really definitive statements and speaking on behalf of a group of people, because we're all different. We all have different point of view. Just like some people like a certain color, others don't. I mean, it would be so crazy if just because we share a diagnosis, we share all the same views. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who speaks in absolute like that, I mean, loses my respect.
Mm. Okay. Well, just to close with one last question, what advice would you give to other self-advocates who are maybe in the early days of their self-advocacy journey?
I would say to be careful on social media. Don't take everything you read at face value, like that's the absolute truth. Do your own research, listen to different perspectives. It is so important. Don't just join a specific type of group, Facebook group or whatever. Listen to different perspectives. Take your time to form your own opinions. Try things for yourself. See if it works, if you like it, and remember to not speak on behalf of the entire community.
Well, thank you, Eileen. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. It was great to catch up with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoy this podcast and you'd like to support our mission, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. You'll be helping us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. Thanks for listening. Take care.